Take attendance. Ariana, yes, I see you. Talia, I see you. Taryn's going to be absent. Paul is here. Reagan. Joe usually comes here late, but the Destiny is in the room. Ryuna. Dana, Abby, Veronica, Brenda, did I, B, Deasia, yes. Liz, yes. Logan, no. Whitney, no. Melissa, great. So, does anybody have any questions about things? I apologize for kind of getting you more confused than you needed to about submitting into Blackboard. I think if I just focused on submitting a Word document, it might have been a little easier, but trying to explain both submitting a Word document and submitting a link made it more complicated probably than it needed to be. But I see most people were able to submit something. Questions about that particular assignment? So what is new about writing that you learned from doing that assignment? And this is for everybody, either both online and in person. And I think there's a way to raise your hand. I don't see it.
I think the biggest thing about what we learned is that organization in your writing is a huge role in people clearly understanding your writing.
Yeah, so what does really organization mean?
I guess like the for me is like reiterating on the wording, like content, format, structure, all those words that we had to place. Can't get my words right, but for me, I guess it was more so like using the correct terminology, like you said, elaborate on what is organization.
Okay, so you said, in other words, structure. What does it mean to say that you have a structure that's useful for your reader? Or something is organized versus not organized? Why does that matter?
It makes it easier for the reader to understand.
Makes it easier for the reader.
Makes it more appealing, makes them want to read it more, I think.
Well, it kind of depends on the topic.
Well, that's true. That's true.
But this is the thing that is so important. I don't know if the camera shows. Yeah, kind of shows. This is the thing that's so important about writing that you perhaps did not learn about. Maybe you did, but that's the focus of this class. You're trying to figure out how to write something so a reader can get it. It's not just that you're trying to write something that you want to say, which certainly is a part of it. But the whole goal of this kind of writing is, can you write it in a way that the reader will get it? And how does organization help?
Groups things.
So grouping things, why does that help?
I group things in my mind, so if it's presented to me in a group, I'm going to have to organize these things.
you can remember it more easily and you can, and do it more easily. And I mean, we know that all the time. You know, we don't remember phone numbers anymore, but we used to remember phone numbers by being 3 digits and then 4 digits. So I could still tell you my phone number when I grew up, which was 937-3264. And that 937 was a call number that the whole area of town had. Just like here, was 663s and 227s and 891s. Well, nowadays they don't have it, but it was a lot easier to remember. Thinking about your social security number. How is the social security number grouped?
Section by section, 3 numbers and,
Everybody's thinking in their head.
3, 2, and 4.
yeah.
3, 2, and 4. And so it's easier somehow to remember those things because they're grouped. The brain likes to organize. The brain wants to see patterns. And so your reader has a brain, hopefully, and the reader wants to see the patterns as well. And when you help them by organizing it in some way, that's really important. What else did you find out about writing that was new in doing this activity? Anything else?
The importance of white space.
White space. What do you mean?
That my brain comprehends things better when there's more white space. If it's all, the words are jumbled up together, I just kind of speed read and glaze right over it.
Yeah, we've all done that. Speed read, glaze right over it. Reading is one of those things that you can fake. You know, you know that if you've ever sat somewhere and then suddenly woken up with your drooling and realized that you've been changing the pages, but really not really reading it. The white space, the point, part of the point is we're all a little bit ADHD. We all have a lot of things kind of coming at us. And so we need to get help in focusing on things. And so you as a writer are helping the reader focus on the important things by creating white space that kind of like allows the focus on. This is, we're working with sort of graphic short things because that's more obvious to do it, but this all applies even if we're talking about just text. So where's the white space in a regular text that, you know, is just a book? How do you see white space?
I mean, it's around it and there's paragraphs that are indented and maybe a title for a chapter sticking out. Or...
So the paragraph indenting, you know, we take that for granted, but that's a way of creating white space. And you'll see that there's 2 ways to create paragraphs. One is to double space between the paragraphs that are single spaced, and the other is to do the indenting. When you have everything double spaced, then you can combine those 2 if you want. Notice that that white space is also connected to the organization. So those paragraphing, chunking, that is, the white space is showing you where there's something new in this topic. And that's a really important thing. We're going to talk about that in a minute. You have to be constantly thinking about what pieces of information are relevant to other pieces of information. And so therefore they belong together. And what pieces of information are separate. And so therefore they apply somewhere else. And that gets us to this activity we're doing. with CRAP. I can write it, but it's hard for me to say it out loud. I've actually written out a whole assignment, the assignment that we're going to be working on. So, and that is actually in the Weebly, the weekly activities. Let me give. On the Weebly page, there is actually a PDF version, a download, and I kind of recommend that everybody at home actually click on that and download it and bring it up on the screen, because we're going to be working with that for the rest of the class. So you go over to week 3 and you just click on this college poster. And then here it is. And if you can try to get it on the screen. Do people know how when you have multiple windows, you can have them sort of in separate locations, kind of, you can pull on one and have it as a separate window and another window somewhere else. I'm afraid to do that right now because I'm not sure what'll happen to my screen sharing. So, okay, so everybody should have this document somehow visible to them, at least in some small form. Is that the case online? Does everybody have it? Because in a minute, we're going to divide up in groups and work with it. So let me go back to the CRAP article. So he started talking a little bit about the C and the R. C is contrast, and you can have contrast in color and size and shape. And also you can have it in meaning, and that's important to kind of keep in mind when you're thinking about how you're organizing things. So, and then the reverse side of contrast is really repetition. So if you have too much contrast, you have, everything's just like so different, your brain has a hard time kind of focusing on so much stuff going on. And that's kind of what happens when you have a paragraph where all the ideas are jumbled together and not divided up. There's no contrast. So the opposite of contrast is repetition. And there are ways to create repetition by how you design things. You can see there's a repetition in color in this one. And then we're going to talk about 2 more things, alignment and proximity. Alignment has to do with where you line up things. It's exactly how it sounds. In texts, one of the obvious thing is how you put the text, whether you center it or whether you left justify it, that's aligning it to the left, or whether you right justify it, that's aligning to the right. There is a tendency to overuse the center justification, center alignment. If you have too much center alignment, what happens, here's a text that has a lot of center alignment. excuse me, can you see what happens?
Starts looking sloppy along the edges.
It looks really sloppy. So that's one thing. It's just not really aesthetically appealing. What else? This is a standard thing they do, by the way, to show examples of, they use Latin, meaningless Latin words. So in case you're trying to understand what it says, it doesn't say anything. It's just Latin words stuck together. And so you see these sections, it looks sloppy. It's, you know, you kind of wonder why it's zigzagging like that. And if you left align everything, it just looks neater. Now, in English, like a whole lot of languages, the left to right language, so we generally left align. There's sometimes reasons to right align. I will often, like with titles, right align, move my title all the way over to the right, kind of makes it centered. Almost never is there a reason to align both. Like this. This is what they do when publishing, but the publishing programs, especially, are usually for texts that are longer than this. And what happens with right and left aligning is it spreads it out, and so then you get these gaps in the middle. It generally is not something you can do or you want to do. So a lot of times alignment has to do with just formatting, but we're going to be working on letters, and letters alignment is part of the genre, the format rules of letters, and so we need to know about it. They gave you an example here just of how they changed their own logo, and I think it does look better. Their original design was all center justified, and their revision makes it so that the text is aligned on the right and then the logo is just there on the left. Little bit of a change can make a big difference just in how you're seeing things. And again, remember, when you read, there's you know, a lot of stuff's going on. You're thinking, you're trying to understand whatever they're saying. So you might as well make it as easy as possible for your eyes to just kind of go through things. Now, proximity sounds like it's just something to do with visual. The idea behind proximity is another grouping thing. And basically it is the idea of grouping. That is, you group similar things together so that your brain will connect them. You can see this obviously with visuals like this, like here, there's this example with these name cards. But it applies to writing of text as well. So the whole idea of proximity means closeness or, you know, adjacence or it's kind of like whether something could be not, yeah, I think it has to do with closeness. It's not the neutral. And part of that is showing your organization. So here's their example of their own process. So they created a heading system, and they're making very clear that this heading process of optimization, whatever that means, is followed by this text there, and that this followed this text there. If they had that, there's this really slight line, which is interesting, and I think it works, but if it were really, really hard line and thick, it might be confusing because it might be seeming to suggest that we're shifting to a new topic. And then this is their example of newspapers. You know, these days with TV and newspapers, I think it's like they're all assuming we're all multitasking and whatever. So there's like 16 different things coming at you. If you watch just a baseball game, along the bottom there's what everybody else is doing. And in the background is somebody talking about something somewhat related to baseball. And then somebody else is standing there talking about exactly what's going on. A lot of different things going on. And they try to show what's related and what's not. Partly what happens is that you become familiar with a particular way they present all this information, so it becomes clear. But the first time you see it, you're like, what's going on here? You could definitely take a look at these and try to figure out what makes the first one seem less cluttered than the second one. Just any general questions about these? Okay, so here's our assignment today. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to divide you up into groups. There are, how many of you? I will probably divide you into 2 or 3 groups in the online collection. And then there's 3 people in here, so there'll be 1 group. And what I'd like your group to do is to look at this Back to College Tips handout and try to generate a list of every way in which they are using the CRAP principles. So contrast, one of the contrasts can be color. What kind of contrast in color do you see?
White on blue.
White on blue on the left. So you have the contrast between blue and white, and the white is quite easy to read. So that's a really important thing. Let's just talk about that text. We'll just talk about that with all 4 of these things. So watch your distance, wash your hands, wear a mask, which is a section of this text. So one of the things that makes it easy to read is there's a contrasting color, white on blue. Repetition. Is there repetition in these 3 lines?
Repetition in the bold print.
In the bold print, wash your distance.
Short. Mm-hmm.
What is it? What is being repeated?
W.
They all start with W. That's interesting. They do.
Yeah, they did that on purpose.
They all start with W. What else do they all start with?
2 of them starts with wash.
What grammar part of speech?
Verb.
A verb, yeah. All 3 of them. Do this, do that. Alignment. What can you say about the alignment of that?
Left alignment.
It's definitely left aligned. And then the whole thing, you can see that there's 2 sets of alignment. And then proximity. What could you say about proximity? Just of the wash your distance, wash your hands, wear a mask.
It's grouped together. Well, they're spaced out. Those are definitely spaced out. But what's up under there? I can't see that.
What's underneath each of them?
Yeah, I can't see. It's not important, huh?
Well, what do you know? You can't really read it if you're just looking at the small print. But what do you know about that small print? What does it relate to? The bigger print above it, right? So it's going to be an explanation about watching your distance or washing your hands, etc. So there is the example of what I want you to do, but I want you to, see if you can come up with a list, I don't know, each group should try to come up with a list of at least 5 or 6 things having to do with each one of the 4 things. Well, I think we should let the people in the room be seen today. There you go. All right. So let me. All right. Are you all seeing the poster again?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
let's talk about all the different ways that CRAP are represented in this poster. What kinds of contrasts? Sure.
Said the blue and green is at the top, and then the blue and white.
So we have color contrasts with the blue and green.
There's bold lettering, there's circles with illustrations. There's changes in the font sizes.
Fonts. Let's talk about, I think this idea of talking about each section is probably the best. So let's focus on this, again, this blue section on the left. Watch your distance, wash your hands, wear a mask. So we already talked about the contrasting colors. What else is there a contrast in that section?
Like the size of the letters, like
The size of the letters,
headings.
which helps
the
with,
headings are larger.
I'm sorry, say it again?
The headings are larger than the information under them.
So what does that do? Which one of those things, which one of the CRAP elements does that help with? Besides the contrast?
Alignment.
Partly alignment. They are aligned. Also
What's the
helps
R
with
stand?
Proximity.
proximity because it makes it clear that the smaller print fits under the larger print. What else in terms of the blue layout, blue section?
I noticed that after we left the breakout sessions, on the left-hand side, the sentences slowly start to get shorter.
Huh.
So lengthwise, it kind of shortens as you read it downward, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so there's kind of like a pulling your, kind of almost an arrow kind of thing. Do you guys see that? What other contrasts on the blue? Well, what's the most obvious one is what are the main elements in it? There's text on the left of the blue side and circles on the right. So you've got a contrasting shape there. But those shapes are repeated, right? What's repeated? Yeah, the shape, it's exactly the same circle. You know, it's exactly the same size circle. Just like on the left side, the text is exactly the same grammatical form.
But the circles are also kind of staggered. They're not aligned.
That's true. Do you think that matters or?
I think it makes it stand out more, really.
Okay. What else is repeated in the circles?
Well, basically what the headers are saying, they're just giving you an illustration of that.
Mm-hmm. How would you describe the type of visual in each of those?
The art style is the same for all of them.
The art style is all the same. They're all drawings. You know, you don't have a photograph in one place and a clip art in another and a cartoon in another. They're all drawings and they're all the exact same art style. what could you say about the colors within the circles?
Outside one around.
They look like they're on the same palette with the blues because there's a lot of purple.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Notice that the background on each circle is just a slightly darker blue version of the blue that's the behind. They all have the same brown, the same yellow, the same, I guess green is only in the first one, the same white. So there's definitely repetitive in colors. What else can we say about just the blue section? Okay, let's talk about the top, the very top thing. Back to college tips, protect yourself from COVID-19. How is that contrasting with the rest of the document?
That is not all gold at the top. You got the little dashes.
I'm sorry,
The top line is all capitalized.
you're gonna have to talk louder because
The top line is all capitalized.
the top line is all capitalized. So that makes a contrast to everything else. What is that saying, telling us? Why capitalize that very top line?
That's what the whole thing about.
The whole thing is about. So that's the format for the top level heading.
It's to get people's attention that way.
Mm-hmm. What else about the top section that is a contrast with the rest?
The color of the background is different than the rest of the document.
Color of the background is different. It's this green background, and I don't think that green shows up anywhere. What
It's all
else?
it's all capital letters at the top.
Yeah,
Oh, is the front is different. It's a different front.
it could be a different font. It may be the same font. All of the fonts here is what's called sans serif. You know what serif and sans serif mean, or sans serif? So, yeah. If you have a J, you probably, oh, you can't see it. Everything on this whole screen is sans serif, meaning there are no little teeny dots. Do you know why those teeny dots were developed in text, in fonts? In the old days, they had to print by having metal molds that they put, metal pieces that they had molded, and they stuck each one down. And in order to lift that letter, there was a little hole in it where you pulled it out and, placed it. And so when you see a font that has a lot of serif in it, a lot of these little extra dot kind of things on the edges, it tends to look a little more old-fashioned or a little bit more formal, just because it is older. Another thing about this font is there's a term for it, but all of the lines are equal sized. Nothing gets smaller as it goes around. And let's see what they do for E's and A's. Yeah. So we'll take a look at fonts at another time when I can go back and forth. All right. So what else is can you say about that top block?
Got the little dashes.
The little dashes
It's on the top line.
to the left,
It's at the back, the little dashes.
right here on the left.
The little dashes between the words.
Oh, the Back to College tips. That's actually there for spelling reason. Back to college is a compound word that is hyphenated. So those are hyphens. Well, one thing that's obvious is it goes across the whole top, right? So it goes across the whole top, sort of combining, creating some unity between the two sides. And at the same time, it fades off. An interesting thing, I think, and you can't really see it on this version, is on the bottom right here, where it says CDC Gov coronavirus, that's the source, and that's a rectangle in this sort of yellow gold. And you see that same yellow gold up here. So it's kind of balances it out. And if you go onto the CDC website and look at all their posters about COVID, they all follow that same exact pattern, which just kind of interesting. How about this side, the dorm, shared bathroom, classroom?
The main things are in bold, are bolded blue and separated like inside of a rectangle.
Okay.
And everything else is bolded black. Like information that they want you to know in bullets.
Yeah, and we didn't see bullets over here, but you see that there are consistent use of bullets under each category here. What about this section? This is sort of like separate from everything else. Before you go out, take the following. What do you guys think of that? How does that fit into this whole document?
Because it's telling you some things that you should have to prevent COVID.
To protect yourself.
Pardon?
It tells how to also protect yourself, so it just goes along with everything else.
So it fits in with here. What is the common topic in this side?
Being safe, keeping stuff clean.
Yeah, how is it organized?
Places you can go.
Places you can go. So each one of these is a place. Dorm, shared bathroom, classroom, dining hall, meals, laundry room. What makes this different?
Things you take.
So if you leave campus, this is what you do. So here's a point. Was this poster designed for an ULR type college? Could be for anybody. What makes this little less than a ULR type college? What does it presume about the audience?
They're just college students.
They're college students.
College students, yeah.
Live
They don't say that.
in a dorm. How many of you guys live in a dorm? You live in a dorm? I have one in the room. How many online live in a dorm? Anybody live in a dorm? Oh, Abby, you live in a dorm? Everybody else? Okay, I didn't quite hear that, but, okay, so you guys are doing a great job at noticing all these things that the designers did to try to make it easy for you to access this and follow the instructions, which of course is the purpose of this. This is instructions, how to keep yourself safe for COVID. All right, so we're going to have one more activity related to this, and it'll involve getting started now maybe, but homework for Tuesday. I'd like you all in these same groups to go to the CDC website, which I'll do, and find another poster. The reason I have started using the CDC website posters is there's so many nursing students in this, usually in 3316, but there are lots of other organizations that I could have used. But they really spent a lot of time doing posters. Because part of their mission is community information. And the easiest way to find well, there are two ways to find a poster. You can pick a disease or condition or an issue that's interesting to you. Let's say you're interested in ADHD. And information and you can kind of wander around on the page. And usually there will be a section that says something like materials and multimedia or resources. And it says fact sheets, videos, infographics, widget, button, podcasts, and webcasts. So all these different things. And then they will share all these things. So here is 2 different infographics for parents of children with ADHD. And that's one way to find a title, find a document. Another way is just go and something you're interested in, and I think I need to say diabetes first. And here, and then you'll get posters. A future without type 2 diabetes. And here is another poster. Totally different design style, which is fine. So what you guys need to do right now is I'm going to let everybody back into their groups. Somebody needs to create a Google Doc in each group. And as a group, you need to, what is our time? Yeah, we have time. As a group, you need to kind of wander around in the CDC place, see if you can come upon a poster or infographic that you'd like to work with. It doesn't have to be about COVID. You will find that if the first thing that happens when you go to the home page, the first thing you get is coronavirus and so this is where I got that. And see, I got to all these communication resources. I like this one. Keep calm and wash your hands. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to put you back out in group breakout room.